So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Pippa Ridley, who's Managing Director at Etempa Web Solutions. So, firstly, Pippa, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Etempa Web Solutions, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Sure. So, yep, I'm Pippa, and I run Etempa Web Solutions. We're a web development company based just north of Leeds, in Otley. We specialize in building websites and web applications for growing businesses. We mainly do bespoke development. So if you need something a little bit different, something that you can't get out of the box, something that sort of enhances existing functionality, then you can call on us, and we will basically create whatever you can think of, and make it work on the web.
Wonderful. Sounds great. What would make a great client for you? What are the sort of best people that you work with, do you find?
So we tend to work with companies who are maybe looking for their second or third website,
Yes.
sometimes fourth or fifth. But it's generally companies that are really looking to either expand on what they're doing, or kind of they just want to tell people about what they're doing better.
Yeah.
It tends to be companies that, as I say, they can't get what they need from the kind of software that they you can click and drag,
Yeah.
and everything, and
Yeah.
they just want to do something special. We also do a lot of back end systems as well, so it's not just the front end of a website. If people are looking to have a back end system that again does something that's really specific to their business, that again you can't get out of the box, then they're the sort of people we work with.
That makes sense. So, and yeah, it makes perfect sense. I know, a lot of people probably, when they, as you say, start a business, it's just get something up and running that
Yeah.
works and tells people, but quickly realize that the stuff that those sorts of things don't really operate and produce a professional image for themselves. And so now they know a bit more about what they want to achieve, and you can help them deliver that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, if we look back a little bit to start with, Pippa, if you could tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
Okay, so I've been making websites pretty much as long as I can remember, really.
Brilliant.
It must be well over 20 years now. I first learnt to code from a book, which is kind of hilarious now, but that's what it was. You bought a book, and it told you how to do something, and if it didn't work, there was no one to help you. You just had to keep at it until it did work, or move on to the next page. Um, I did my first website job when I was about 15. It was my best friend's mum. She had a holiday cottage in Ireland, and she wanted a website.
Brilliant.
So I put together something really quite basic, but that was my first official paid website job. And then I went to university, Durham, studied computer science. And again, I did some work for a company, Bill Free Homes. They did like student letting, and during the period where everybody's sort of clamoring for houses and stuff, they wanted some software that the tenants would enter like basic details like name, address, whatnot, and they wanted a system that would auto-generate the lease, which was essentially their template.
Yep.
So yeah, I built that was probably my first kind of web application, that kind of did stuff,
Yep.
and built that for them. And then when I finished university, that was back in 2012. I just declared that I was going to set up this web development company. So that's what I did. And the rest is history, really.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What a great story. So you've always, I mean, it sounds like from just growing up, you've always been involved and wanted to get involved with websites.
Yeah, I had a obviously quite a broader education when it came to computer science, but I've always loved coding.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess websites seemed like an easier route to go down than trying to make like big software systems when I was going at
Yep.
it, from the start. So, I kind of figured everybody, it was around the time where everybody needs a website, but not everybody necessarily had one. So it
Yes.
felt like the easiest route to kind of get into, given I was starting from absolute scratch. Um,
And I guess you can see the result. It's a visual medium, is it? You can see the results of what you're doing quite quickly. I will confess to being I was actually trained as a software engineer, same as you. I haven't done anything for many many years. No idea anymore. Um, but yeah, the sort of things we were doing, we were working power stations and stuff, and you didn't know it worked till you actually delivered it on site and actually connected it up to the things that you were controlling or monitoring. So I can imagine that ability to sort of say, "Well, great, this is working," and see it's really cool. Wow, what a great story! And of course, 2012, that's 13 years you've been operating.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I don't know if you know the stats, but the stats are quite sad, but obviously worth celebrating from your perspective. But unfortunately, in general, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years of operation.
yes.
And of the 20% that remain, another 80% of those fail in the following 5 years. So it's really sad. It's but one of the reasons I
Yeah,
do what I do. We as an organisation do what we do. So getting to 10 years, let alone 13 years, it puts you in the top 4% of businesses.
excellent. That's a great stat.
Something to celebrate. Well, it's very much something to celebrate because it's just,
Yeah,
it really is. I think a lot of people, I work with lots of entrepreneurial people, and they're always focused on what's next rather than what they've achieved. And we actually actively do celebration on a regular basis because that, for me, builds resilience. It's like, yeah, we are good at what we do. We have achieved a lot. Whereas too many people think about, yeah, but we haven't got here yet, or we haven't done that yet. And if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. No, it's good. It was a good year when we celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, so looking back over those 13 years, what are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome, Pippa?
Well, the biggest issue initially was sort of duplicating myself. So it
Yes.
became apparent quite quickly that if I was going to grow and, well, it was a decision I made, I could have just stayed just me.
Yep.
But I wanted to grow the business. I wanted to tackle bigger projects as well, and not
Brilliant.
many people want to give massive projects to just one single
Yes.
person. So I made the decision that we needed to sort of grow, and so yeah, that was one of our hardest things. So first, I had to learn all about employing people and all of that
Yep.
kind of side of things. But then I had to work out how we were going to kind of maintain the standard of and like I say, duplicate myself. So the very first person that we took on as an employee was actually an apprentice.
Brilliant.
So I started training her, and that seemed like the best way to duplicate myself is essentially train somebody to do things the same way that I do things. And really, we've taken that with us over the years. So I think nearly everybody that we've taken on has come to us from basically scratch.
Brilliant.
And we've sent about, well, it must be over 10 people now through this training program that we've kind of developed, loosely based on an apprenticeship, but without the formal
Oh,
qualification.
yep.
But yeah, like that works really well for us. It keeps the standard up. Everybody's learning
Yes.
from me or learning from somebody who's learned from me. So we all do things in a similar way. But it's also great to have everybody coming in from different backgrounds and different walks of life.
Yeah.
Everyone's got different experiences. And it's also nice to give people a way into the industry because
Yeah.
a lot of jobs like even the junior jobs, they say must have 1 to 2 years experience. Whereas we say you don't need to have any experience.
Brilliant.
We just take people based on kind of aptitude
Yep.
and yeah. So yeah, that was probably that. Well, and still is our biggest challenge,
Yep.
kind of taking on people and scaling up the business.
That's that's fascinating. I mean, really, it's fascinating. It's one of the things we help people with is recruitment, and one of the principles we speak to people about, which is very different to traditional recruitment, is we recruit on attitude over experience. And we
Yeah,
would, on the basis, we'd rather have people with great attitude wanting to a work for you and with you, but also do it your way, not necessarily bringing a whole bunch of
yeah,
baggage about how they operate. Now that doesn't, I just want to be clear, it doesn't mean people with experience don't have great attitude. If you can get both,
yeah.
that can
That's
be a winner.
great.
But if you start with people that just really want to work with you and are interested in what you do, and therefore and want to learn to do it your way, because that's how we can build a business that's scalable in then wonderful and great to give people, as you say, the opportunity to people to actually you know either retrain or train in something new for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant. So well, yeah, again, looking back, whether it's from the challenges or from the successes and wins you've had, what are some of the biggest learnings about growing a business, Pippa?
Uh, well, I think one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn is essentially learning not to be such a control freak. So I think when I started out, like I think I took the duplicating myself like super seriously and strictly. And I had to learn very quickly that that was just is just not practical on all levels. It took up so much of my time. And Also I think I had to learn that actually it was good to have other people's ideas coming in and kind of doing things differently based on their experience.
Yeah,
I think it probably took me probably longer than it should have done to really realize the value of that. But now I think we kind of really embrace people coming in. So particularly I mean, as I say, I mean, it's been over 13 years since I was in any kind of formal education. So one of the biggest benefits of getting new people in who have recently done like kind of boot camps or whatever is you actually hear about, kind of what they're teaching people now,
yes,
new technologies
yeah,
and such. So yeah, that's actually it started off as the thing that I was kind of fearing, but it's actually become like a big benefit for us because
yeah,
I mean we can keep up to date with like blog posts and whatnot, but having somebody who's just come from doing like a 3 month boot camp and saying like this is like look at this new like extension that
yeah,
that kind of saves time. So that's been great for us.
brilliant,
Yeah.
wonderful. And I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Um, so well, probably a couple of standout people. When I was a student, I did 3 years of summer work experience at a local software company. And my boss then, Neil Roughton, I really feel like I learned a lot from him. It was at a time when I was thinking about starting up a company myself.
Yeah,
So over those 3 years, sort of seeing how how he did things, really, how he managed the team,
yeah,
how he had new ideas for new products. And my husband, well, now husband, actually ended up working for them for about 8 or 9 years. So I was kind of constantly learning about what was happening with that business again while
yeah,
I was running my business. So I took a lot of inspiration from him.
brilliant.
And the other major person who I still learn from is my mum. So she's a director at Etempa as well. And she basically like it. If you're talking about businesses failing in the first however many years, like she absolutely got us through those years.
Brilliant.
She kept a tight hold of the purse strings. She was constantly telling me that about keeping costs low in order to basically not run out of money.
Yep.
And yeah, like those lessons, I still remember, still apply. Even now, everything isn't quite so sort of tight. And yeah, she's probably one of the best coaches I'll ever have.
Brilliant. Great, great. A lot of people speak to will reference at least one of their parents. I think it's wonderful. Whether it's from those guys or anywhere else, do you have any favorite quotes or sayings about business or success in general?
Um, I well, I have a lot of things that I feel like I am constantly telling the developers, which may not be quite as applicable to a broader audience. But
Okay.
whenever anyone has a problem, I'm constantly asking, have you checked for spelling mistakes? Because spelling mistakes in code are like so often the reason why something isn't working.
Yes, of course.
And have you checked that the file has saved properly? That's the second thing, and that will probably solve at least 30 to 40% of problems
Brilliant.
when people have issues. And I was thinking about what probably my most often used phrase is, and that has been inherited from my father. When we've got emails and phone calls coming in all the time, I'm just yelling. It's like Piccadilly Circus in the rush hour. Uh, and that is so true. I don't know why, but we don't get like an awful lot of phone calls. But when we do get phone calls, they all come in at once for some reason.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yes, it's often a function of being a successful growing business is that it's constantly busy and it's
yeah,
I think it's nice to be able occasionally to take a break and find a way to take a break. Even put the phone, even put the phones on hold
yeah,
because
sure,
it's
yeah,
like, and I know loads of people out there go, you can't do that, your customer, you might lose a customer. But sometimes it's just okay to take a break.
yeah, yeah.
And do you have any alongside that any favorite books or podcasts that you can recommend on business in general, life, or I'd say technology too?
Um, Probably not so much on well, two podcasts that I listen to quite a lot. The Darknet Diaries podcast is just fascinating. So it's basically about like the dark side of the web.
Right.
It's about hacking, security. Like the guests he get on to tell like just all these stories are
Yes.
incredible. I'm still making my way through the episodes, but I absolutely love hearing about that side of things. And the I think it's Bradford University do a business podcast about responsible and sustainable management.
Great.
So I went on a Help to Grow course that was sort of funded by the government, but put on by Bradford University. And it's one of the lecturers there. It's a podcast about essentially how to be a responsible manager. They get on
Brilliant.
great guests, and I love hearing about different ideas about how to manage a
Brilliant.
business.
I'll have a look at both of those. Both sound very interesting. I'll look those up. And you speak working on learnings. What would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Pippa?
Oh, what have I learned about myself? I think in a weird way, I think if you'd have asked me, I would say that I can be quite rigid in my ways. I like doing things the way I like doing things.
Yep.
But I think what I've actually learned over the years is I can be more adaptable than I would almost give myself credit for. And I guess that kind of comes from learning that it's good to learn from other people. And if I look back at how I am now, I think yeah, that is something that's kind of surprised me. But I think it just makes me just better and better because you can just absorb everything so Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest surprise to myself.
Brilliant, brilliant. I think it's really a useful ability in because everything's always changing, isn't it? So the
Yeah,
ability to go with the flow. But the great thing, I often say to business people, and going back to your point about rigidity, is um, it, I always say to people, look, ultimately, the challenge with running a business is the buck stops with us. Up until a point where we can have somebody else for whom it stops, if we get
yeah,
to that point. But the great thing about having a business is we get to decide exactly how it is.
yeah,
Who we work with, how we work, what are the rules of the game, and that's such a great thing to be able to say, this is how we're going to work, this is who we are, this is who we choose to work with and who we choose not to work with. So it is a double-edged sword, but it's great to be able to do that, and I think we earn the right as business people and business
yeah.
owners to do that. Um, and I'm keen to know your feedback on this. So, in Actually Coach, my organisation, we have a definition of a true business is a commercial profitable enterprise that works without its owner.
Oh golly, right, yeah.
Now,
Well, I think I don't know if I mean, yeah, I suppose on a long term, a business has to like run independent of the person who set it up because they're not going to be there, sort of for the length of time that you would hope a business would run. So yeah, I hadn't really thought about it like that, but that's probably a fair definition. And I suppose that just kind of reiterates the importance of building a great team around you and
yes,
training each other to so you're all doing something consistently. So if you do lose that one main person, the whole business doesn't fall on its face.
and I often use the word "can" in there, so it can work without the owner, purely because I meet people like yourself. You clearly love what you do, so not doing it would not necessarily be the way forward. But I think the key thing it does is it gives us choices. It
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
It,
Yeah. And
and
and I'd like to say that we definitely did like a dummy run of that a couple of years ago when I went on 3 months of maternity leave. I literally did have to hand over the
Brilliant,
business to everyone around me, and when I came back, everything was still there.
perfect,
So
well done.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, that is pretty cool because it obviously clearly is, and I would imagine, given speaking to you now and getting a feeling for your business, a lot of that is because you've recruited people that take ownership.
Yeah, I
That
think
still
so. Yeah.
because the difference
It's
is, sorry, go
important.
on.
It's important. I mean, it's important for us from just simply getting through work and the day to day. Like I always tell when we recruit, I tell people that there is a big element of sort of independent sort of working and making decisions and everything because yeah, when I try to micromanage everything, like I just there isn't just enough time in the day
No,
for me to do that. So I absolutely need good people who can make decisions, take ownership of those decisions, and kind of take it forward.
it's I would and the proof is in what happened when you went on maternity leave because there are plenty of other organisations where people will go, well, that's not my job.
Yeah,
I can see there's a gap, but I don't really care because I'm just doing my bit thing. So I think it's a great testament to what you've created that is the case. It's interesting on top of what I've just said about our definition because it's a really useful definition because I think the other part of this is if it doesn't work without the owner or can work, then we become the bottleneck. We become the
yeah.
barrier to growth. So it's a good thing to do. And I heard a lady called Jennifer Byrne speak a couple of years ago, and she's the ex CTO at Microsoft, going back quite a few years, but she was very senior. I think she did do work with Bill Gates at one point, sort of as an overlap. But one thing she said, and it always stuck with me, especially for busy business owners that I often work with, is she said in the US, when they recruit C-suite executives, CEOs, CFOs, they actively test them on their ability not to do things. And
Yeah,
it's like a blimey. It's like it hits you in the face, doesn't it? But it's like, yeah, okay, because our job is to lead other people to do things.
yeah,
So it's just an interesting one that sort of maybe reposition some of the things. Um,
yeah.
uh,
I,
so
I I I think that was one of the kind of lessons that I took from the Help to Grow course in like kind of being a good leader rather than a manager
Yep.
is about kind of, allowing people to, take something and then run with it, like rather than kind of sitting behind them and like constantly checking
Yes.
in that they're doing it right. And like you say, that if everything has to come back to you, then you just become the bottleneck, and doesn't really help anybody.
Absolutely, and it's interesting I mean, obviously, we need both leadership and management in a business, but it's really interesting to understand that I think the leverage that leadership delivers in terms of we can impact so many, leadership impacts everybody, and we can, by leading effectively, we can increase the productivity of the organization by being a great leader. I was telling this lesson. I was telling a client yesterday. So my first job was at a company called Ferranti Computer Systems over in Manchester, and the the chairman of that company was a guy. So it was a big global company. But the chairman of the company was a guy called Sir Alan Jones, and he was in his 60s, and he had this mane of silver hair. He was the classic sort of company chairman that you might envisage of a large blue chip. And we very early, I was only in mid 20s and very early 20s, and we had this. He was coming to speak to the troops, if you like. So we piled into this auditorium. There was 200 or 300 people in this auditorium, and he came down and he spoke for about 30 minutes about how we were moving forward, and it was this big sort of everyone. You could see everyone in the room grow a couple of inches in height and go, "Yeah, we're going to do this. This is great." And so my proposition would be that 30 minutes, he increased the productivity of the whole organization by 10 or 20% just by his leadership. And what stuck with me, which is as he walked off, I happened to be at the end of the row, and I always think he looked at me, but he probably looked around at some. But he looked at me and he said, "I'm off for a game of golf now." And I thought he'd done his job. 30 minutes had improved this whole organization. And it's an interesting to see that leadership is something that's so valuable, even if it's only done, it doesn't need to be a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
It's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and that's the dream, right? That we can eventually just spend 30 minutes and then head on off.
Absolutely, absolutely. One day. So people looking forward, what does the future look like for you guys, and what are the main challenges you might face, if any?
Future. I mean, I think right now we're just looking at doing more of the same of what we're doing, but bigger and better, really.
Yep,
I think we've settled into a nice size that will
yep,
probably
great.
kind of stick around for a while. I don't want anything to become sort of too unwieldy and lose that kind of personal connection that we have
Yep,
with the team. We're a nice size to be able to tackle pretty much any
yes,
kind of job now, so that's kind of sorted. And we do have long-term plans of kind of half breaking into the product market. So we do a lot of work on Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform, and they
yep,
have themes that people can buy to add onto their website.
yes,
Often we do bespoke themes for people, but we're in the process of developing a theme that we can put on the theme store, and then we'll have to worry about all sorts of complicated things like, support
yep,
and all of
yes.
that side of things. But yeah, that's kind of in the going on in the background. And yeah, I guess just trying to navigate through what I think is going to be a tricky couple of years for businesses. So I guess it doesn't affect us necessarily super directly, although the cost of employment is obviously, it affects everybody. But we do normally get the knock-on effects of businesses, obviously, from, kind of tricky economic times. So I
Yes.
think we're just starting to feel that really this year, having had a couple of years delay. And yeah, so I'm expecting the next few years to be a little bit tricky, but I guess it's all about making sure that the jobs that we're doing for people actually provide sort of value, and they're getting stuff out of it, whether it's kind of efficiency or being able to do something new,
Yeah,
selling new products a different way. All lessons that we learned through a lot of COVID, because I feel guilty because everyone talks about COVID being this horrendous time. We probably doubled or even
Right.
tripled our staff over the period of COVID because it was just absolutely bananas. But
Brilliant.
so yeah, we had to learn a lot of lessons really quickly in COVID and steer people a little bit because everybody was quite rightly, you know, I mean, some people were quite hysterical about how their business had just suddenly disappeared
Yes.
overnight. So, kind of guiding people into what would be the best thing to do rather than just kind of throwing money all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I'll take away the lessons that we learned from COVID, and apply them going forward, just in
Yes.
a less manic way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's hope so. And I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going to business right now.
Oh, anyone going into business, make sure you factor in that you're probably not really going to make much money at first. So definitely have a plan about how you're going to live. Something that I didn't really give too much thought at the time. And but having said that, there's nothing more motivating than having no plan B. So
Yes,
sometimes you've just got to throw yourself into something,
absolutely.
and give it a go. And number one important lesson in business is keep an eye on your costs. Like, do anything that you can do yourself, even if it's just for placeholder or just while you get going. We did
Yes,
nearly everything ourselves. We just learned how to do every aspect of the business. We managed, with something that maybe wasn't quite perfect. And that's what I tell businesses who come to us wanting a like all singing, all dancing website, as their like first website. And I send a lot of people over to Wix, or Squarespace, and I'm like, just get something up,
yep,
just get your basic information on, like
brilliant.
come back later, in
Yep,
a couple of years when you're up and running. But
yep.
yeah, it's things like that. Keep making sure that you keep startup costs as low as possible. Yeah,
Ve- Very, very, yeah, very valuable advice. I think it was quite interesting. Is I work with businesses as they're starting to get onto that sort of growth curve, and one of the challenges is absolutely that sound advice at the starting point, as you said, the establishment survival mode, all those sorts of things. As we get successful, there is a point where there typically needs to be a mindset change of going from sort of keep costs down to investing.
yeah,
Invest got to give a return, but it's like because
yeah.
if all we ever do is keep costs down, then we that itself can limit the growth of the business, and it's a very difficult
Yeah,
place to
which
be, if
when
that makes
to
sense.
when to go for it. We had a we as I say, we did all of our bookkeeping, we did all of our accounts,
Yep,
every year, just by ourselves, and we had one absolutely horrendous September. The government had changed something which meant that we could no longer submit our accounts on like a Word document or Excel. We had to submit it using this special government software, which we didn't
yep,
have. And so we only found out about this when we came to submitting it. And we were really pushed for time. So we had an absolute massive scrabble to find an accountant who we're still with.
brilliant,
And she absolutely saved us because we had left things slightly to the last minute. And she got us all sorted, with this software.
brilliant,
So yeah, absolutely. There is a time when you need to hand over to the experts, and yeah,
brilliant,
that was the best decision that we made.
wonderful. And if you did start again, is there anything significant that you do differently? Do you think, or would you sort of pretty much run the same course?
Um, I often think that I was really naive in the fact that I just started a business straight out of uni with no real world experience, no contacts, no knowledge of how other businesses operate. But in a way, I think that kind of gave me the confidence
Yep,
to just do it because I didn't really know anything
yep,
better. I think one of my main mistakes were whenever I was trying to take any kind of shortcuts. So, sometimes whether it was, trying to get somebody to help me with kind of social media, or marketing or paying for leads and all that kind of stuff, massive waste of time and money for me. Like, nobody knows your business and what you do sort of better than you.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I learned those lessons the hard way. And now if there's something that is sensibly within my sort of remit and skill set, then now I just upskill myself and learn about it and do it myself, because trying to find somebody to do it as well as you would
Yeah.
want it to be when
Yeah.
it's like such a core part of your
Yes.
business. Well, I've never mastered it. Uh, so
No,
um,
yeah,
so
makes
yeah,
sense.
that all of those times when I tried to outsource stuff that I really could have just sat down and done myself, like I would love to cut those out. Um,
Yes. No, that makes perfect sense. And final question, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you went back in time and did that?
oh, surround yourself with good people. Listen to them and learn from them. Yeah.
Wonderful. Very sound advice. Very sound
Yeah.
advice for anybody. Um, Pippa, it's been really fascinating to talk to you, and congratulations on all you've achieved, because it's a clearly a brilliant success story that we haven't. For anyone that was interested in getting in touch with you or Etempa, what would be the best way of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, probably just head right. So that's www.etempa.co.uk, Etempa. And yeah, see what we do, and you can get in touch from there.
Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months and just see what the next stages of what you're doing, and if you've launched the product you were talking about. But
Yes.
for now, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.